you never know what you're gonna find in the drawers, in the logbooks. The Cabinet of Curiosities surrounds us here at Mystic Seaport Museum.
Just the tip of the iceberg of what's at Mystic Seaport Museum.
Welcome to Sea Class. My name is Crystal Rose. I'm the Curator of Collections here at Mystic Seaport Museum. Today I am joined by marine biologist Dr. Jim Carlton, and we are going to talk about Whaling's Cabinet of Curiosities.
Delighted to be here.
Sounds like fun, right?
Great.
So Jim, you and I have been talking a lot over the years about kind of all the odd things, right, that come back to us from these 19th and 20th century whaling voyages. And really don't serve much of a purpose other than they're just curious, weird things. You know my favorite things.
Yes.
And so we have some of those things to talk about here today.
Excellent.
I actually wanted to start it out by showing you this cool broadside. And it says all about monster whales, whalers, and whaling. And this is Captain G.H. Newton of the Inland Whaling Association. Now, Jim, have you ever heard of the Inland Whaling Association?
I have not.
Okay.
No.
So get ready for this story.
Okay.
All right. It's around 1880, and this guy, George Newton, he is very inspired by P.T. Barnum, right, and all kinds of traveling shows, and he decides that he is going to put a dead whale, on a train cart and drive it out west to show people what a whale looks like.
Pretty cool.
Pretty exciting story, right? Yeah. Okay, so he actually purchases a whale. Here at Mystic Seaport Museum, we have the receipts. We have all of his correspondence with the whaling captain.
We happen to have a whale.
We don't have the whale.
Oh, yeah,
we don't have the whale.
Okay.
The whale is buried somewhere.
Okay.
Somewhere out west. But believe it or not, this was a semi-successful venture. He actually, there were some very strange embalming attempts, right? At first the cold, because this first started in the winter, the cold preserved the whale. And then, as the whale is going out west, and you can even see here, like I think that we have some locations somewhere, goes out, mouth of the Hudson River, Philadelphia, Fairmont Waterworks, it goes to Milwaukee, St. Louis, Cincinnati, Louisville, Niagara Falls, Detroit, Michigan. Can you believe this? This whale on a train. And I don't know, do you think it was very smelly?
Yes.
By the time it got to probably, I believe, like around the Chicago area. It's actually quite smelly.
It is more value than a book.
More value than a book. Parents can thus give their children a grand practical lesson in natural history.
That is. Yeah.
So I actually think this is one of the more interesting and bizarre stories that we have in the collection, a true cabinet of curiosities objects. And to have this George Newton's whole manuscript collection, we have tickets to the show, we have all kinds of interesting things. So it's a fun collection. So Jim, you're here today to talk with me about all of these incredible animal parts that we have. We have some sperm whale teeth here, and we have several sperm whale jaw bones in the collection. And in fact, one that was pulled up out of the river by our watercraft curator.
Really?
In 1975, it was actually pulled up, and it was probably
from the Mystic River.
Yeah, from the Mystic River. Probably pulled up in. It was probably from the 1850s, and so kind of cool. But sperm whale teeth. What can you tell us about sperm whale teeth?
Sperm whale teeth are they're very much structurally like human teeth. They have an outer layer of enamel and then dentin and cementin and so on. But unlike human teeth, of which we have 4 types, as you know, in terms of what's in our jaw, 32 teeth, just one type of tooth in the sperm whale, which is a cone-shaped and curved tooth. And they're massive, far more usually than in the human jaw. It can be 6, 8 inches, even longer, and are fixed only in the lower jaw. And they just grow with age. There are no baby teeth. and there are no teeth on the upper jaw.
Right, they kind of fit into.
They fit into a
to
socket
in the upper
up,
jaw.
up in the upper jaw. They're fierce looking, they're pointed, and for a long time it was thought they were used to eat the prey, consume the prey. The prey is squid,
Yep.
very often. But it turns out these are mostly probably for aggression and are used whale to whale, as it were. And we know that in part because the squid are very typically inside the whale's stomach, but they're not torn apart.
Interesting.
Possibly for grasping, a slippery, long, slippery squid, but in general, the squid are sucked into the sperm whale, and these teeth are used primarily, we think, for aggression, as evidenced by the marks and scars on many sperm whale.
Oh, that's pretty cool. We also have some. Speaking of sperm whales, so not that we don't know that this is from a sperm whale, but we have some other kind of strange objects over here, and they are.
Yeah.
You wanna take a guess at what these are? I know you know. I have this one right here too.
We have two different shapes of kidney stones, and they weigh a lot.
Yeah.
Just to give that a heft there.
Whale kidney stone.
The whale kidney stone, yeah, as opposed to a large human kidney stone. Now, human kidney stones, fractions of an ounce, little tiny things. This is a large one, and human kidney stones can be up to a pound or more, but these guys, several pounds.
Wait, a human kidney stone could be a pound or more?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot. But whale kidney stones can be massive, almost always associated with toothed whales. Maybe
Yeah.
something to do with their diet. Baleen whales rarely have kidney stones. Calcium-based generally. Different kinds of calcium, different kinds of calcium compounds. Magnesium can be in here as well, and we know that from in this case, from a drill hole that was taken in this specimen, and then the specimen was chemically analyzed.
Very cool. And Jim, I don't know if you know the crazy story about this particular one.
This is different.
Yeah, but this kidney stone was actually found during one of the restorations of the Charles W. Morgan.
Even more massive. Yeah.
that's kind of
Inside the Morgan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looks like a rock, doesn't it?
Because
Yeah.
wouldn't you save a kidney stone if you
Sure,
were
yeah.
out on a
souvenir,
whaling
yeah.
voyage? Yeah.
Again, different kinds of calcium,
Yeah.
usually, maybe some magnesium, other things in there as well.
Yeah.
Just really cool.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
hopefully we never have to deal with those.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
we'll put those away.
Yeah.
So some other things that we have here. This is a kind of a cool wet specimen that we have, and Jim, I know you're a wet specimen guy. You have lots of your own, right?
Yeah.
What are we looking at there?
These little creatures in here, preserved in probably ethyl alcohol, ethanol, look like little spiders. We can kind of get different shots of
We
it
call
over
them
there.
whale lice, Jim, but I understand they're not actually lice.
And they're not spiders. So yeah, they're called whale lice. These are creatures that live on the skin of the whale. They are crustaceans. Lice are insects. Spiders, of course, are not insects or crustaceans. And these guys, we're not sure what whale they're from. They're very strange looking. I'm going to swirl them around a little bit up there. They live on the skin of the whale. They eat the dead skin cells. They scrape algae off the whale skin. There can be thousands and thousands, very itchy, on a large whale. These are called cyamids. They're crustaceans, generally called whale lice. Yeah.
And I understand that each type of that different whales have different species of whales have their own species of lice.
Yeah, some of the whale lice are host specific. Sometimes there can be different species on one whale, but of the many kinds of whale lice, they're often associated with a whale, and in some cases on different species on a male versus a female.
Yes.
Whale.
Yeah.
Kind of cool.
That is very cool.
Yeah.
I love these guys. They're very special. We'll stick them over here. All right. Well, while we're talking about wet specimens, how about this? This is a kind of a difficult thing to move. I'm just going to really carefully bring it over here so that we can talk about it. So what we've got here, the story I know about this, what I've been able to piece together with research, some of it, thankful to our registrar, Laura Nailberg, who dug into this a bit, we were able to figure out that this is probably a wet specimen containing 2 humpbacks and a blue whale. And we think that they were probably taken from a California whaling station in the 19-teens or 20s. Yeah. And then at some point here in the history, here at the museum, they were combined into this container together. So they're fetal whales. But what do you think about these guys? This is
having the fetus of these whales is interesting to have, especially preserved in alcohol. If we can get them in alcohol when they're originally preserved, it also helps us learn a lot about the genetics of whales, especially historically. So we can get DNA out of well-preserved specimens, and that reveals often that the genetic structure, the genetic diversity of whales historically was much greater than it is now, due to the history of whaling. So valuable to have these. Different kinds of preservation techniques can be used. Sometimes they're dried out, but best of all in some kind of a preservative, what they call spirits in the old days. And today, 100, 200 years later, we can actually get DNA out of these.
That is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
One of the things that I like about them is if you look closely, you can actually see the eyes, you can see the mouth formation. It's really quite detailed there. It's interesting to look at.
Obviously very young specimens.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So great,
Cool.
excellent. So wet specimen, we'll move it aside. And other things that we've got here. I know these are a favorite of many people. We've displayed these before and talked about these before. We've got some whale eyeballs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And these are these are pretty fun, Jim. I don't know if you know the story of them or the provenance of these.
Where did these
Where
come
does one
from?
get whale eyeballs?
Where do you happen to?
Yeah. So these were actually collected by a man, a local man named Captain Quentin Walsh. He was in the Coast Guard, and in 1937-38, he was asked to go on board what was thought to be an American whaler, and this is a pelagic whaler we're talking about, an open ocean whaler. He was asked to go on board the ship to document the way that the whales were taken and processed, and actually he contributed all of that information to the International Whaling Commission. He had a lot of concerns about what he was seeing, and that too many whales were being taken, two whales that were too small were being taken. It's a very interesting, the research that he did, and it really went forward to change people's minds about the whaling industry. So he collected these, and we know that he took them, he scooped out the insides, and he shellacked them a few times. Yeah. And so you have these little orbs.
One of the best things of a cabinet of curiosity are these grapefruit-sized, very typically grapefruit-sized whale eyes, and this is about all you usually get left. What's left of the outer hard portion, the sclera, protecting the eye, some cornea, which is now opaque from drying out, of course, but hardened, harder and thicker than the human eye, related to the pressure of going down into the deep sea. So really nice specimens, well preserved, and actually, potentially, we can get protein and other things from these kinds of specimens.
We did.
You did? Yes.
So we actually took a sample from these eyeballs, from
these guys?
from both of them.
Yeah.
So what's interesting is that we had thought, in all of our records, we had recorded that these were probably blue whale eyeballs, which would make sense because the Ulysses was taking many blue whales, as we have documented in all of Quentin Walsh's notes. But it turns out through peptide mass fingerprint testing, which actually looks at the proteins and compares it to a library of other proteins. What we found out is these are actually fin whale eyeballs.
Wow, cool.
So and of course they were also taking fin whale.
So protein fingerprinting told us what species of whale this was.
Yeah,
That's
and we're
cool.
doing that to more and more things in the collection, which is really great, and it's helping us to back up some stories, right, that we've always known about objects, and other ones it's changing the narrative, which is kind of cool.
Cool.
I have some more things. These are blue whale ear bones, apparently, eardrums. They're kind of unusual. I always think they look like a face, but it's a strange little piece. Also shellacked.
Yeah, classic whale ear bones, and of course, different from the human ear bone. There's no long exterior ear canal, and the ear bones themselves are not attached to the whale skull. They're kind of suspended from ligaments, and that helps the whale detect sound better, the direction of sound for echolocation. So the structure of the whale ear and ear bone is different than humans, but these are really lovely examples from. And what did we decide? Do we know what whale this is from?
The notes that we have with the donation is that they were from blue
whale. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
We haven't tested them, but
yeah.
that's
Cool.
to come.
Yeah.
That's to come. We'll
Yeah.
find out. We'll
Yeah.
find out.
Yeah. Excellent.
I have one last thing to show you, and I'm excited about this because
Yes.
let's slide this over. The museum, we just very recently purchased this logbook. So this is a whaling logbook. So it says Journal of a Whaling Voyage. And this is from a vessel named the Stella. And what's really cool is our curator of maritime history, Michael Dyer, was going through the logbook, and it's from the 1860s. He was going through it, and as he was looking at the pages, what should fall out of one of the pages but this?
A whale.
Yeah.
Or whale skin.
Whale. So this is whale skin.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
so. I mean, and it's not actually unusual to find things in logbooks. As you and I know, we've looked at many logbooks. There's often flying fish fins, seaweed sometimes, all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And on occasion, you'll have some whale skin.
Whale skin, which is often comes out as little pieces like this. Whale skin is surprisingly thin. People think it's often thick, but it's fairly thin over the blubber. Right. And here we have a great example of some artwork done. So you, in the hours available on a whaling ship, we can make a little model whale out of whale skin. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I mean, we haven't tested this yet. I intend to, but
yeah.
My guess would be that it could probably be a sperm whale.
One
it
of these
looks like
guys
they were
right
sperm
here.
whaling.
Yeah.
So
and we've got so many interesting objects that reflect the history of whales, past, present, and tells us about the future as well. And so the historical depths of this are really just only begun to explore what some of the resources are.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Jim, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
This
Delighted to be here.
so fun talking about my favorite topic here, and I look forward to many more conversations.
Excellent.
And thank you for joining us for today's episode of Sea Class, Whaling's Cabinet of Curiosities.